I'd like to welcome everybody to the 2014 December 10th City of Rapid City Legal and Finance Committee. And first order of business is the roll call and the termination of a quorum.
Here.
Here. Thank you. Up next is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any items to add or delete from the agenda? Does anybody wish to make a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion by Laurenti, second by Nordstrom to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Up next is general public comment. Now is the time for members of the public to discuss and express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Any action will not be taken on any meeting at this meeting. Any issue not on the agenda, except for placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the council members present. I currently have one speaker request form from Mr. Bill Freitag. You just introduce yourself, sir, and you have 3 minutes. Once it hits the red light, you can do. It's working.
Okay. Thank you, Chad.
I started now?
Bill Freitag, 3821 Brook Street. And I would appreciate it if you just kind of cut me a little slack on the timing here, because I got to be careful what I said, because I think something is pretty close to being resolved, and I don't want to say something now that's going to hinder that. So just cut me a little slack here, and I'll try to do it timely. My concerns deal with this: the public's right to speak and the public's right to address government actions. I don't think it should be frowned upon, and I don't think it should be hindered. On December 3rd, a letter was addressed to me saying things like, if Bill would stop talking. Then a day later, I was accused of being behind Jordan Mason, doing something independently on his own, and filing a writ. I had nothing to do with it. In fact, I'd encouraged Jordan to wait. However, I was accused of being the instigator of that, and then a day later that was walked back. And you were all informed by the accuser that it was not me. However, there was never an apology offered to me for the accusation. And, and I find that just a little hard to take in an open government where I'm being told that, geez, you shouldn't be talking, Freitag, and then this accusation, and then never an apology for it. In this December 3rd letter, there was something that really troubles me, and I don't think it was ever done maliciously. Don't anybody misunderstand me. I'm not trying to point my finger at somebody and say that they're a bad person or anything. I just think it's the way this government has grown to be. It's just gotten a little too loose. And anyway, in this December 3rd letter to me, it was admitted that there was information held back. And the quote was, I did not want to give anyone free suggestions on how to potentially derail the current proposal. Okay? It is not the job of government to only provide information to the proponents of the Civic Center and withhold information that government assumes the opponent of the Civic Center might find useful. Since when did government get to do that? That's you guys. You let that happen. All the elected officials let that happen, and that's terrible. That's not open government. That's terrible government. There was other things in that letter that are very troubling, but in a 3-minute time frame, you can't go into all of them. But if you, as elected officials, are interested in discussing those with me, I'd be glad to share those with you. And I think when we do, it probably would be worthy of full disclosure to let the media be present. And we'll discuss them, see if we can get through them, and see if we can go on. I'm to the point, the only thing I want to see is a vote given to the public on the Civic Center. But I don't want a one-sided vote. I don't want them to only get information from the proponents. I want them to get information from the opponents. I want them to be clearly informed and then make their decisions. I have other things I would like to say about the financing as proposed in your Amendment 6018. If any of you are interested in hearing what I have found in some of these numbers, I would hope you ask me to return to this podium so I can give you this information, you can study it, and you can come to your own conclusion, whether I'm correct or I'm not correct, but at least take a look at it. So I appreciate the time you give me, Chad, and I appreciate the latitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freitag. I have no current other requests for general public comment. Does anybody wish to speak on any other items that are not currently on the agenda? Okay, I'm going to move on to consent items numbers 1 through 8. I'm now going to open public comment on items 1 through 8. Does anybody wish to speak on those items? I have no speaker request forms. Now going to close public comment on those items 1 through 8, and I will now go to the council to see if anybody wants to remove any items 1 through 8. And Mr. Steve Laurenti.
Item 6, please, Chair, if I could.
Item 6,
Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 8.
Item number 8. Okay, item number 6 and item number 8. Other than that, I would entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 8 with exclusive of 6 and 8. Motion by Laurenti, second by Darla Drew. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is to approve 2015 insurance renewals for property liability and excess workers' compensation. Chair recognizes Steve Laurenti.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Laurenti, second by Nordstrom. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to ask the Finance Officer a question, if I could, please. Representative from the Finance Office.
If she can answer, she will.
It's really just a general question. I looked at the rates that we were being charged for the next year, and I just wanted to make sure that that is what we anticipated. It looked like it was about a 3.9% increase, and if that's been the general increase we've seen, and if that was expected.
We do always expect an increase. We're very happy that it is at 3.9%. I think we probably anticipated that it might be a little bit higher, so we are very comfortable with the rates that we were given.
Okay, and that's what I was hoping to hear, because I know from the previous year and the year before that, they were considerably higher. So I just wanted to make sure that we were in tune with that, and from the new budget, of course, obviously, it anticipates that, so thank you.
There are also representatives of the independent insurance, is that right? How do you say it? Independent insurance agents? And thank you. Present in the audience. And since they're here, I want to make sure and reiterate, I do it every year, but since I didn't pull this item, you did. They do give back, I think it's 50% of the policy, something like that, to the general public, Rapid City, in the form of donations to nonprofits. So it's money they could take and they don't. So they need to be acknowledged for that, and I appreciate their cooperation with our community and doing the good thing, doing the right thing. So thank you very much, folks. The motion is to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item number 8. Item number 8 is the resolution dissolving TID 44. Item Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move to approve the resolution dissolving TID 44.
The motion approves. Second by Laurenti. Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, what this amounts to, in my opinion, is a good learning tool, a good tool that we can use for additional education for ourselves, for future TIFs and TIDs, developing them. Just as an example, the district was created in 2004, and is being dissolved in 2014, and that's a 10-year turnaround time, which is quite good when we normally expect them to be in the neighborhood of 20 years or plus. And there's some other information provided within the staff report, and the yes, it's all in the staff report as to what this TIF did for that area and how it worked out in a very positive fashion. With that said, if anybody has got any other questions about it, I'll be glad to try to answer that. But I think this is one of the strong reasons that we need some additional TIFs to be taking place within Rapid City. Not saying that these are perfect tools, but that's the only tool we have. And this sets a good example of why we need them. Thank you.
Motion is to approve. Any further discussion? Biting his tongue, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Laurenti. Move on to non-consent items, numbers 9 through 13. I guess that's my Christmas gift, right? Now I'm looking for public comment on items numbers 9 through 13. I have no current or speaker request forms on any of those items on the non-consent calendar. Does anyone wish to discuss those items? I'm now going to close public comment on items 9 through 13. Item number 9 is an Alliance of Tribal Tourism Advocates update on the Powwow Ground project and request for extension of time. I would recommend a motion to continue this to next Legal and Finance, as there is a delay on the speaker's ability to show up. So moved. Is that okay with council? Is that the approach? Okay, attorney? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. That was a motion by Laurenti and second by Weifenbach. Okay, up next is item number 10, introduction and first reading of ordinance 6024 regarding supplemental appropriation number 4 for 2014. Motion approved by Nordstrom, second by Darla Drew. Any further discussion? Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Chair. And if I could ask Finance Office a question on this one. It's really just to ask
Absolutely.
them to give us some clarification. Thank you.
Sure.
If you can just give us a brief synopsis of the appropriation, just for the public's knowledge on this, that would be great. Thank you.
Basically, what is included in this supplement are some carry forwards for the CIP and the vision funds that were not taken care of earlier in the year. Typically, they would have been done in an earlier supplement. Also, a majority of this supplement includes tax increment districts for their budgets. They do not go through our normal budgeting process. It was for certified costs and interest that the city would end up paying back out to the developers. There
Thank you,
are some
Bert.
costs in some Winter Storm Atlas costs that came through this year that were added. Those are the majority of this supplement.
Okay. Thank you very much. I yield.
Next, we have Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Laurenti, Alderman Laurenti. Because that wasn't attached earlier, so I don't know.
I believe it was attached Monday morning, so I'm not sure when you had looked at it.
Okay, yeah. Well, when it first came out, so I didn't get a chance to really look at it, but, so I guess I'll take a look at it now. Thank you.
Okay. Motion is to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item number 11, introduction and first reading of ordinance 6025, repealing chapter 10.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to wards and precincts and adopting a new revised chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Nordstrom, second by Darla Drew. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item number 12, second reading and recommendation of ordinance 6003 to adopt the 2012 International Mechanical Code by amending chapter 15.26 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion by Laurenti, second by Weifenbach to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13, second reading and recommendation of ordinance 6004 to adopt the 2012 International Fuel Gas Code by amending chapter 15.22 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
Move to approve.
Motion by Nordstrom to approve, second by Laurenti. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14 is approve the funding for the Cornerstone from fiscal year 2015 to fiscal year 2014, giving them $100,000 from the passage fiscal year fiscal year 2014 funds. Move to approve. Motion by Laurenti, second by Weifenbach. Any further discussion? Darla Drew? Barb Garcia, if you could please.
Just because this is a particular area of interest for me, please tell me a little bit about the passage funds.
For 2014, we awarded passages, $122,000, I think $734, somewhere in that neighborhood, for transitional housing for the women's program. They withdrew that application because they are faith-based. We will fund faith-based organizations, but they can't require anybody to attend their services. They can't require them to do anything that is faith-based. They did not want to remove their two requirements. One was to attend Bible study classes every week and to attend church services every week. That was part of their program.
Okay.
And they didn't want to remove it, so we would not be able to fund them. So they withdrew that application.
And so this money is left over from that application? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying? Okay,
Yes.
all right. And it'll go towards women's housing and
Cornerstone's project is women's transitional housing, women and children. So it's doing the same thing. The passage is just a different clientele. And so as far as HUD's concerned, we're not changing the program that we agreed to fund, the type of project. It meets that, and we had already approved in 2015 giving them $100,000, and we have the $100,000 sooner. And
Okay.
council approved their project this last week
Yes.
for purchasing the property. So we just want to move it up so that they can purchase sooner, and it'll help us by moving our funds so we aren't over our spending cap.
Well, that's excellent news, and thank you for your work.
Okay, and
Thank
Richard
you.
Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Barb, thank you for coming up and give us a brief background on this. Now, can you explain a little bit about where those regulations come from or rationale behind the help me out.
The spend
because
down ratio?
Yes, correct.
We are not supposed to sit on our money. We're supposed to get it out and get it, the projects accomplished in a timely fashion. On any projects that we do, typically they're one-year projects. We do have the option of up to 3 years on one. And so what they look at each January 31st for us, because of the way our fiscal year is, 45 days before the end of our fiscal year, they pull a report on us, which was attached. I pulled it early to get an idea because I need time to move the funds. And in pulling it, it looks like we would be, in that report, $68,000 over. And we have to have it spent down. We should not have more in our account than using the current year's funding and the new year's funding. We should not have more than 1.5 times the current year's funding in there. That's HUD's rule. Region 8, under which we operate, has their own rule that's more restrictive, and we should not have more than 1.25% of our funding sitting there at the end of this program year, not allocated, not completed. And with those two, with Passages withdrawing, that $122,000 is sitting there. And then we also had Teton Coalition's $50,000 that has not moved. So without those moving, that puts us over our ratio.
Thank you. And just to clarify, it's not because of the faith-based organization is why it's being reduced. It's not anybody's rule or regulation. It's not anybody's fault for doing this drawdown.
No, I would clarify, HUD supports funding faith-based organizations.
Yes, correct.
However, faith-based organizations cannot restrict or require anyone to meet their faith-based. Our HUD funds have to be open to anybody to use, but we can't force them to do religious things.
Yes.
And in this case, it was Passages Board's decision that they wanted to keep those two elements in their program. They feel very strongly that's what their program's built on. And unfortunately, with HUD's rules, they couldn't require them. They could recommend that they did and encourage them to attend, but they couldn't require them. And their board decided to leave the requirement in, which means we would not be able to fund them.
Thank you. And it's not based on anybody's particular faith,
No.
religion, or that. So I just want to make sure the public really
Right.
understands that portion.
The point was, if an atheist was entered into that program, they could not require them to go to church or to attend their Bible study school if that atheist, that was against their principles. So that was kind of the issue that, and Passages said they don't feel that, but they did not want to take the requirement of those two items out. That was their choice.
Thank you, Barb. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Motion is to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain just informationally for the person that brought in the late slip, I already closed the public comment on that item, and that item has been continued until next Legal and Finance, so you can comment then. All right. Motion to adjourn? Motion by Weifenbach, second by Nordstrom. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.